Hey, thank you for tuning in to Chump at the Bit. Hopefully, you're having a great day. I know that I am because one, the NBA is back, and two, the NBA is back. So, I'm a big NBA fan. I'm a Celtics fan as well. So, coming into this season, really excited to see what the team looks like. And as we know, the season started Tuesday night with the Celtics and the Sixers. So, in this episode, kind of want to give my early thoughts on some of the teams that I watched over the past couple of days. So if I don't talk about your team that you're a fan of, it's not because I'm hating or I just didn't watch them. Well, actually, it is because I didn't watch them, but I just didn't get around to watch them. Not that I'm avoiding watching them, because I do plan on at least getting to see each team play a full game over the course of this week, as it is, NBA start week or whatever they call it. So that's the only disclaimer. But like I said, definitely will check out every team. I actually watched a good amount of games over the past couple of days, so have some interesting things that I'm seeing. I mean, yes, it's only game one for these teams, but I saw some troubling trends with some teams and some things that I really liked from others. So we'll get into some of that. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. I'll start with Tuesday night because, like I said, opening night for the NBA. We had the ring ceremony with the Warriors and Lakers. We had the Bill Russell tribute before the Sullies game against the Sixers, and I thought the Russell tribute was great. Um, I mean, he's one of those Celtics greats that you think of when you hear the name Boston Celtics. I mean, he had 11 rings as a player and a coach, even a player coach. So he's synonymous with the history of the team. And then, like I said, ring ceremony is always a must watch thing. Of course, with Golden State winning it against my team last season, but I still tuned in for it. So, I guess quickly, Celtics Sixers. Since that was the first game of the night, I liked what I saw from Joe Mazzulla. I will give him a lot of credit. I mean, I wasn't one of those who doubted him when he took over as the interim coach for Ime Udoka because of the staff last season. A lot of these players already know his voice. They understand his personality. When they named him the interim coach, I believe Jason Tatum was one of those who came out and said that, he's all on board with Missoula. So that's an important step. You get top players on your team to follow you, and then the rest of the team will follow in line with them. But from watching the game, with no Robert Williams, so we knew that the Celtics would have to go small pretty often, and they did. But it wasn't to the detriment because we know the Sixers have Embiid, they have James Harden, but more so Embiid. If you play small, there's a good chance Embiid could torch you for 40, 45 points. Actually didn't happen. He only scored 26. He did grab 15 rebounds, but that's I mean, Joel Embiid averages like 12, 13 rebounds a game for his whole career. So that's kind of on par with him. Now, Harden had a good game, 35 points, but more so for Philly, the troubling trend I did see was that their offense is a lot of Harden, doing his dribble, step back stuff. And it's cool if he makes a few threes. He made a few in the first quarter, got fouled on a couple. So I had a couple 4-point plays. Um, well, I had a 4-point play, and I think a couple of them he, just went to the free throw line for three. But it's all good and well when he's making them. But if he misses them, then the Sixers offense, I feel like at times this season, if this is the way they're going to play, they're going to get really bogged down because they don't move a lot offensively. It's usually either Harden out on the perimeter or Embiid on the low block early in the game. But then as the game goes on, it seems like Embiid pushes further and further out from the basket. So the middle part of the game, you'll see him kind of in the mid-range area, posting up or facing up defenders and either taking the jump shot over them or quick little move. By the end of games, especially if they're down, you're going to see Embiid probably drifting towards the 3-point line, which I think is a win for most teams. He went, I think, like 1 for 6 from three. Tuesday night. And especially for the Celtics who were playing small, that was definitely a win for them. But even when he was in the low block and in the mid range area, Celtics defense played him pretty well. Like I said, he had 26 points, but they made it difficult on him. And I think that's the best thing you can do with Embiid. Be physical with him when he is down low, because that's gonna, I think, further incentivize him to push to the perimeter. Because I think Embiid is a physical specimen, yes, but he doesn't like doing that game after game, all game. So they put Noah Vonleh on him, who I thought played well, even though he didn't score a lot. But he held his own as a smaller guy against Embiid. They threw Horford on him, who had some questionable foul calls called on him, but he was still able to lean his body on Embiid and really work against him physically. They put, I mean, they had like switches when like Brown ended up on him, or Smart, or Tatum even. And they switched up the double team packages as well. They didn't double team him all the time. Certain times they may run a double at him on the catch. Other times they'd, you know, wait for him to catch it, maybe face up, then run a double at him. So they kept him kind of guessing all night. But I think the biggest thing that I liked from the Celtics was they played with a lot of pace. They out um, they outscored the Sixers on the fast break 24-2. That's been a big point among Celtics fans when they watch the team, that sometimes they can play a little too slow, when us as viewers see that as kind of giving the defense a break, because Tatum, Brown, Smart, now with Brogdon, who I'll talk about in a second here, but with Brogdon, these are guys who can break down perimeter defenses and get to the rim. So I would like to see them play a little bit faster like they did Tuesday night. And I think that will set them up for this, long season where they're going to try to get back to where they were last season, and that's making the NBA Finals. And then I guess one last thing with Brogdon. Um, I thought for his first game regular season with the Celtics, he played great. He gave them like 16 points, I think like 4 or 5 assists, 2, 3 rebounds. But more importantly, his mentality when the shot goes up and the Celtics come down with the rebound, he makes himself present. They get the ball to him. He's automatically pushing the ball, whether it's him himself or with the pass, advancing it up the court. And I think if he can keep going with that, it'll become contagious, where Smart Smart does it as well. But if those guys can keep it as a consistent thing, then this team will be part of their second nature to do that. And I think once again, that's going to make it scary for a lot of teams in the East. So after one game, really liked what I saw from the Celtics. Saw some problems with the Sixers. So Doc Rivers gonna have to try to fix that. I don't know how you do it, because that's been James Harden's MO. Do a lot of dribbling and step back shots with the occasional drive to the hoop. But then the second game of that night was Lakers Warriors. So impressions from that. I guess I'll start with the Lakers real quick. The Lakers, the more things change, the more they stay the same. So they brought in, Patrick Beverly, a couple of young guys that are sprinkled in on the bench, but their issues are still the same. They don't have any shooters. Defensively on the perimeter, they're still pretty poor. And because of that, I don't know how much better they're going to actually be this season, unless they make a move in season. Of course, then it'd be different. But you keep this current club together, I I'm finding it hard to picture at the end of the season them being much better than they were last season. Maybe they make the play in this season, but I still don't see them as a threat to top teams in the West. The Westbrook thing, I mean, I still say he needs to be on the bench unit, because he and LeBron on the court at the same time doesn't really work. but it seems like that's the way they're going to go. And like I said, I don't know how that's going to work for them. But looking on the other side, the Warriors, they look like they're poised for another run at championship this season. They they have a good mix of the veteran core with Curry, Thompson, it's Green, and then they have a young group with like Poole, Wiseman, who we haven't seen much of in his career, but if they can get a full season of him, he could be a valuable piece to them as a low post presence and actual height that they don't really have a lot of. Um, but yeah, so they look like pretty much the same type of team. Thompson, Curry from the perimeter, Green doing his thing in the mid post, also leading the offense at times. And but yeah, so those two teams are very much the same, which is probably unfortunate for Lakers fans because that means could be another long season with a lot of questions and not enough answers. So those are the two Tuesday games. Then Wednesday night, I caught some teams as well and was very pleased with some of them. For when I saw the Hawks, Rockets, and it looks like the Dejounte Murray, um, Trey Young pairing looks pretty good so far. Just one game against the Rockets, but Murray fits in. He's a guy who he gave them 20 points, but 11 assists, which is key. And I think that's going to be a big deal for the Hawks because the Hawks' issues at times they became too Trey Young centric. And when they got to the playoffs, teams like a Miami or Boston, teams that play good defense and can really slow him down, that's where Hawks or the Bucks, top teams in the East, would really take it to them because their offense becomes bogged down, and then defensively, the Hawks aren't the best team, but Murray does help them there as well. So I'll be interested to see how the Hawks look going forward. I mean, Houston, they're still young, but I think they'll be able to keep games close against teams because they do play pretty fast, which I mean they should with all that youth. Kevin Porter Jr. looked good. I was Jalen Green looked pretty good. So it's probably another rebuilding year for Houston, um, but I did like what I saw from Dejounte Murray. I mean, I liked Dejounte Murray when he was in San Antonio. So now that he's in Atlanta, um, and the Hawks are a team I do watch pretty often, being in the Atlanta area, I will check them out and see how that duo progresses as the season goes along. Another team that I saw, oh, the Pelicans and the Nets. I saw that game. Pelicans look good. I've said on other shows since hadn't been able to do a episode here, but I said on other shows that if I guess Zion can make it through the season with Brandon Ingram, you have what Valanciunas, they have a nice group that in the West, the way it's currently situated, I think the Pelicans could be a top five, top four team in the West. So them going against Brooklyn, it might speak more about Brooklyn, which I'll talk about in a second. But Zion looked fit, which I think is a big, big deal. Brandon Ingram was he was playing well inside, outside, off the dribble, off the catch, and I think he's a very important player for them because he can score in a wide array of ways. And CJ McCollum, he gives them that 3 point shooting as well as off the dribble in the mid range. The Valanciunas down low, he can grab rebounds, you can post him up, he can score for you. So the Pelicans gonna be an interesting team. Of course, Zion's health is gonna be a major thing to watch all season. But on one night, really encouraged by what I saw, and um, Brooklyn now. Serious questions with Brooklyn because they're another team kind of like Philly, where, like I said with Philly, unless basically Harden and Embiid go off each night, they're gonna have trouble winning games against top teams. I think the same could be said for Brooklyn because um, unless Katie and Kyrie probably score 40 a game, which I mean is unrealistic, but it almost seems that way with their offense, they're gonna have serious problems because I know Ben Simmons gets a lot of attention, but from what I saw, nothing's changed with him. Offensively, he still is not really looking to shoot the ball. He has no desire to do it. He had 4 points and he fouled out. His two baskets, I believe, were dunks. So, what are we supposed to make of that? Um, and then him fouling out speaks to, I guess, his defensive presence. And I think he only played like 20 minutes, which was his minutes. Well, I think his minutes limit was like 20, 25 minutes or something like that. But he made it to 20 minutes and he fouled out. So, one, how long is the minute restriction going to be on him? And two, if he's going to start, you know, fouling out at games, then the one asset he brings to the team isn't really an asset because he's fouling out. The one thing he's supposed to do there is be a perimeter defender to, take that assignment off of Kyrie, who's not a great defender, not even a good defender, really. He's good at best for a couple of possessions a game when he, I guess, tries harder. I don't really know how to put it, but for the overall, average at best. Durant is a better defender than Kyrie. Not as good as Simmons when I guess Simmons is on the court and right, but I think this might be another frustrating season in Brooklyn, to be honest with you. So, um, yeah, we'll have to see what goes on there because we're dealing with Steve Nash, a coach. Does he make it through the season if they play this way all year? Durant, does he get frustrated again? Try to get a trade done around the deadline to get out of there? And that becomes a whole story. Uh, Kyrie, if the team looks like they're struggling and not a serious player for a title this season, does he start taking sabbaticals during the season? We'll have to see. It's going to be interesting. Even with Ben Simmons, if the team is looking a little rough, his performance looking a little rough, are we going to have a little nagging injury that comes out of nowhere so that he's now missing games? I don't know. But Brooklyn's an interesting case. And like I said, from what I saw that night, last night, wasn't impressed at all. And I know Stephen A. Smith picked them to come out of the East. I think he said Kyrie win an MVP, and I thought it was a wild, wild prediction when he made it. And after one game, I think it's even wilder than I thought before. So it is what it is. I mean, trying to see what other games did I watch. I saw some of Knicks Grizzlies. I mean, kind of what I thought. I mean, the Grizzlies were up pretty big most of that game. They kind of let the Knicks slide back in, but I think Memphis will be fine this year. They play with a lot of energy. They have a guy like Laravia, who's a good perimeter player. I think that's going to help them a lot because it seemed like before their only real perimeter threat was Desmond Bain and Jaron Jackson on occasion. But if Laravia can be a consistent perimeter player, I think he'll be a valuable piece to them. And that'll just only help them go a little bit further in the playoffs, I believe. For the Knicks, like I said, Brunson, the big money man, he ended up with 15 points. For a lot of that game, he was in single digits, and I was really worried that, I was going to have this feeling that, it's going to be a bust of a signing for the Knicks, which means Knicks fans are probably going to turn on him. But I do think Brunson will be fine. He's a decent player. I wouldn't have given him the money, but I understand why the Knicks did it because they're kind of desperate for bringing in somebody to, give the crowd something to root for. And he did have some moments in the playoffs last season where he put up big numbers. So the Knicks need that. I get it. I just don't know if he's going to live up to the expectations that Knicks fans are going to have for him based off of that contract he signed. Um, Cam Reddish good. I will say that. Cam Reddish look good. Um, that's gonna be one of those things I'll be thinking about because I remember he was in Atlanta, and then Atlanta traded him for Kevin Knox. Pretty sure Kevin Knox isn't on the Hawks. If he is, I don't think he's playing. And the Hawks basically traded Reddish because they couldn't really find a way to get him on the court, even though the Hawks were kind of lacking playmaking, and Reddish did kind of struggle at times when he did play, I will say. But it looks like in New York, at least last night, because he dropped like 20 plus, I think 22 points. He looked good. You slashing to the hoop, hit some perimeter shots. He's gonna be an interesting guy to see. If something finally clicks in him and he becomes that player that I think people think he can be, because we saw it at Duke, he's very talented, but just at his time with Atlanta, it just never really came together. So, like I said, I understood why they moved him, but it's gonna be interesting to see how well he plays in New York, where it seems like they have a role for him this season. What kind of numbers can he put up? Um, let's see. Yeah, so Memphis, like I said, they basically looked like the team I thought they were. Ja Morant looked great. Desmond Bain looked pretty good on the perimeter. Laravia, like I said, that's a guy to watch. Laravia for Memphis. So if you do fantasy basketball, maybe he's out there. If you don't really like your team, that could be a guy to look at. Um, what else did I see? I saw Jazz Nuggets, a little bit of that. I'm not going to overreact. I think the Nuggets will be fine. I fully expect the Nuggets to be a top four team in the West. I mean, they did lose to Utah. We know Utah is in a rebuild, but um, I wouldn't take too much from that game. Maybe you could take from Utah that maybe they're not going to tank. Hmm? They have enough draft picks, so you know I don't know. Utah might be an interesting team as well because depending how well they do, they're going to have pieces around the trade deadline that teams may be calling for. And we know Danny Ainge at this point is trying to, recover assets and picks to really um, aid the rebuild and the restart in Utah. So guys like Markkinen, Sexton, guys like that, I'm sure those are names that probably will be bounced around during the season if Utah, you know, looks horrible. Like I said, Denver lost it, but I'm not going to overreact because I know Denver is talented. I saw Mavericks Suns. I know the Suns came back and won the game, but I don't know. The Suns are an interesting one because I don't know if I should view them as the same team that's been kind of up there in the West the past couple of years, or if they're going to take a little bit of a slip because Chris Paul's a little older. And I don't know. I figured that teams are probably getting used to the whole Phoenix, um, I guess, equation and how they play. And I don't know. Maybe I was reading into their won the finals loss and then how they lost last season. That I wonder what that's going to do for Phoenix during the season. And I mean the whole Robert Sarver stuff in the offseason or whatever. But Phoenix is a team I'm gonna be watching to see what they look like all season. They look. I mean, they didn't look that great for like three quarters. But then they turned it on. So maybe I'll be wrong about them and they'll be right there top of the West again. But I don't know. I think Phoenix will drop back, maybe be 4 or 5 in the West this season. Like I said, Dallas, I'm not worried too much about. Luca had a great game. Dinwiddie looked good. Hardaway Jr. So they're gonna be um a perimeter team. So some nights, they may be flamethrowers in the first half, and then they may come back to the pack second half. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a few games with Dallas where they're up big at halftime and becomes a closer score by the end of the game. I think outside of that, those are most of the teams I watched. Like I said, the other teams, if I didn't talk about your team, it just means I didn't watch enough of their game or didn't watch the game at all. So I don't really have an opinion on them yet. But I will be checking out, more games Thursday night. Well, it's only 2 games on Thursday night. So maybe um, more likely Friday night and over the weekend, I will see the other teams in the league, and then I'll come back with another episode, give you my thoughts on them. But for my Celtics, very encouraged. Like what Joe Mazzulla is doing, and Tatum and Brown look like men on a mission. I'm happy. So with that, let me know what you think. Like I said, if I didn't talk about your team, sorry again, just haven't watched them yet. So when I do another NBA episode, I'll probably have seen your team by then, and then I could talk about them. But if I did talk about your team, let me know if you agree with my assessment of them or if you think I'm crazy and counting them out too early. Let me know down in the comment section. But before I get out of here, as I said at the top of the show, you can check me out Friday nights at 8 o'clock, JJL Sports Talk Show. It's on YouTube, Facebook, I believe, live. And then the audio version is available a little bit after that. We now have a third guy who does the show with us. So check that out. We did our first episode with all three of us last week. Great show, great chemistry on there. I'm sure you guys will, really appreciate that. And then Tuesday nights and Thursday nights, I'm on Spotlight Sports Network podcast. That's on Facebook and YouTube Live as well. There's also audio versions for those shows that are available like the next day on Spotify and wherever you listen to podcasts. But yeah, do great shows on there. Tuesday nights, the Big Three podcasts, where we have a lot of fun talking about, you know, stuff going on in baseball, basketball, football. And then the Thursday night show, strictly football, mainly the Thursday night game, getting you ready for that. So definitely check me out there. Um, like I said, I'm out here really trying to get my name out there, trying to get some exposure. So if you like this show, follow me over there. More of the same there, just um, I'm kind of just interacting with other guys. So yeah, I think that's it. So with that, have a good day. Be safe out there. God bless, and I'll catch you next episode. All right, I'm out.